Hello, everyone. My name is Will Knight. I'm responsible for partnerships at Litmus, and I'm excited to host today's session talking about the digital factory demo. It is a virtual factory that you can set up and demo with customers and prospects that you have. And what's nice is we're not going to just give you an overview today, but also show you how to set it up, run it, and use it in real conversations. So I'm joined today by a couple of folks on our sales engineering team. Dylan, who is a sales engineer, is going to take the first leg of this and give you an overview and dig into the digital factory demo. And then we also have Benjamin, who's going to follow him and show some tips and tricks and I think some interesting things that you'll get a lot of value of. Now, I'll be monitoring chat today for any questions, so feel free to drop those in the chat window. And then we'll also have some time at the end for questions as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dylan.
Thank you, Will, and thank you everybody for joining today. I will quickly share my screen so we can get right into it. So the Litmus Edge digital factory demo is designed to take when you spin up a Litmus Edge instance, we want to give you devices to connect to, data flows to look at, data models to work with, giving you stuff to work with out of the box to show you all the functionality and capabilities of Litmus Edge without you having to go through and make actual device connections. This is all going to be simulated data, but show the functionality of the platform and the different neat things you can do using Litmus Edge. To deploy the digital factory demo, we have a couple different options. One way you can do that is from our portal.litmus.io accelerators page. So the portal is where you would be grabbing your ISO file from, going to get other information on Litmus Edge, as well as downloading these extensions of the platform. And from here, you would click on digital factory demo, and you would follow the instructions to then launch the DFD. In addition to this, you can also launch digital factory demo directly from our application marketplace on Litmus Edge, which we'll look at when we get into the platform itself. But it is a pretty seamless process to take what you would have as a blank Litmus Edge and very quickly get data connections, analytics, data models, integrations, dashboards, all coming for you on the platform out of the box. Just to kind of level set on what digital factory demo, where it lives, we have 3 different products that we offer at Litmus. Digital factory demo is going to live on the Litmus Edge platform. Litmus Edge is really where we do a lot of our heavy lifting. That's where we do our data connections. So we connect to our various OT assets, databases, PLCs, etc. We take that data, we transform it, we contextualize it, we can do edge analytics with that data. We can put all that data into data models. We can integrate that data northbound. We can keep that data east-west and visualize it in the manufacturing facility. So this Litmus Edge product is where we're going to be deploying the Litmus DFD, Digital Factory Demo. In addition to that, we also have Litmus Edge Manager, where we manage all our different Litmus Edge instances. So this is kind of the hive where you deploy the worker bees down from. Litmus Edge Manager allows you to quickly scale. You can monitor your Litmus Edges. You can replicate your Litmus Edges. You can govern your Litmus Edges. And you can mandate and update your Litmus Edges as well. In addition to that, we also have Litmus UNS. That's our MQTT broker solution that ties in natively directly with our Litmus Edge application. Very seamless way of taking the data from Litmus Edge, putting that into a UNS MQTT structure, and then sending that data outbound as well. So again, that's just kind of level setting on the products we have, and Litmus Edge is where we're going to be looking at the contents of the DFD today. That being said, the process you would follow is you would download a Litmus Edge ISO file from the portal. You would then bring that up and you would install a digital factory demo. I'll be showing you kind of the contents of that digital factory demo today, just so you have an idea of what you can expect to see on your platform once the application is launched. Just as a level set again, there's 3 different ways to deploy Litmus Edge. You can deploy as a virtual machine, which we're looking at today. So you would be getting an ISO file. You would mount that to a VM. Litmus Edge is its own Linux Yocto-based operating system. The installation package would deploy, and you would get an IP address that you would go to on your local network, and you would view that from a web browser. That does not mean that Litmus Edge lives online. It just means that we're interfacing with the UI. It's built on a modern tech stack. So you'll be interfacing with the UI from like a Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, whatever web browser application of your choice. You can also deploy Litmus Edge as a Docker container or on bare metal. So we have partnership with Dell. You can deploy Litmus Edge zero touch from a Dell native Edge gateway, for example. So those are 3 different ways to deploy Litmus Edge. And again, this is kind of how we're going to be doing it today from a VM on our browser here. So upon logging into Litmus Edge, we'll get a snapshot of all those things I talked about that Litmus Edge does. So the data connectivity, so how many devices I'm connected to, how many messages are currently going through my data hub broker. We'll look at a graphic about how all this ties in together shortly. Any edge analytics I'm doing. So I get an idea of how many different flows I've built, different computations I'm making. If I'm deploying the edge applications, I'll see that here. And if I have any integrations, so I'm taking that data, pushing it outbound, I see a quick snapshot of how many different integrations I have here as well. Housekeeping stuff over here as well. We have our resource utilization, so I can see CPU utilization, memory load, etc. All this information, just as a side note, does go up to Litmus Edge Manager. So if you hit any critical thresholds on resource utilization, you'll be quickly alerted of that to keep the health of all of your fleet of Litmus Edges throughout your enterprise in good standing. So starting with the first step of this journey, I'm going to navigate to our device hub module. I can navigate to my various modules in Litmus Edge from this left-hand blade menu. And again, when you get Digital Factory Demo, you're going to have these 13 different connections come out of the box, connected, transacting data. So what Device Hub is showing me is all my different data connections that I've made out of the box. So you can see I have a number of different connection types here: Siemens, Modbus, OPC UA, Rockwell. If I wanted to add a new device connection, I would use the blank tile here. I would click on the plus icon. And here you can see we have over 250 drivers to choose from to bring data in. We have some simulated here for you, obviously out of the box, but just to think about the art of the possible, you can see all these different device types we can connect to. We have PLCs, Allen Bradley, Beckhoff. You can bring in Excel data, historian data. We have an ignition plugin, MQTT, OPC UA, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of different options for device connectivity. Litmus Edge was founded on this application, this connection layer for your data to build upon the application from. So this and security are really 2 very strong suits of the platform. So accessing your data is paramount in Litmus Edge. And we've done that out of the box for you using Digital Factory Demo. So once we have our device connections made, we then look at what tags we bring in per device, right? So once I make a connection to an asset at the OT layer, I'm not just going to bring in all that data. I'm going to be specific with what I actually want to work with from a data perspective. So here I can see I've gone from devices to tags, and I can see my list of devices on the left-hand side here, and I can see what tags are existing in DFD for these different devices. So each one of these tags represents a different data point that I can subscribe to and view data from and transform on my Litmus Edge instance. You can bring in tags 3 different ways. You can bring them in manually, so I can manually type in the address of the tag I want to bring in. I can bulk import a CSV file. If I have common tags from machine to machine, I can quickly do that in mass. And I can also manage that from Litmus Edge Manager to quickly get a large swath of tags into the platform. And I can also browse back. This is really cool. I can browse back to my different device connections. Right now I have an OPC connection I'm browsing back to. We can browse back to various PLC connections as well, Siemens S7 Com Plus, for example. I can view the program, discover the tags, and then choose what I want to bring back into Litmus Edge to then subscribe to and begin working with. Once I've added a tag, I'm then free to re-alias that tag. So I can call it whatever name I want. For example, cycle started may be called something different from PLC to PLC to PLC. When we're working in a data platform, we want those names to be common if they're representing the same type of thing happening, in the manufacturing facility. That will allow us to scale and build up our analytics and things like that very, very quickly. So once I've identified the location of that tag from my device, I can rename that tag whatever I want. I can re-alias it. So I would maybe call my cycle started bit the same thing between all my connections, whether it's Rockwell and Siemens. So I can re-alias the tag. In addition to that, I can also add metadata to these tags. So metadata is just me adding extra context to this data point. So not only is it a cycle started from a Siemens PLC, I could add, I don't have any here, but I could add plant, machine, line. I have some examples we'll look at shortly to show all the extra context I can add to my tags as well. Once we've done all that setup of the tag, the key takeaway, the big milestone, step one, when you're setting up Litmus Edge, and we've done this out of the box for you here, is we have a topic to now begin using. This topic is the data point and how it's being declared as it transacts through our data hub broker. So using this topic, I can look at my different available topics here, for example. I can now begin working with my data by subscribing to this topic, writing back to it. Once I change the name of my various tags, I can wildcard the middle portion of this topic, for example. So if I wanted to bring in the temperature value from all my various device connections, I can put a star here, subscribe to device hub.alias.star.temperature, and I would then be building out and subscribing to all my temperature values from all my device connections. So as I re-alias my tags, combining that with the ability to wildcard, I can very quickly do things at scale in Litmus Edge. I'm going to step back to a diagram really quickly, just to kind of talk more about this topic structure and why it's so important in Litmus Edge and in the digital factory demo. So this is kind of the way that the data transacts through Litmus Edge. We have our device hub connections, which we just looked at. So this is one module here. Once I built that topic then transacts to my data hub broker, which kind of lives at the heart of Litmus Edge. From here, the topic can flow bidirectional through all these various other modules in Litmus Edge to begin transforming my data and doing more with the insights that I'm able to provide. So from Device Hub, I can send that data to Data Hub. Data Hub, that data from Data Hub will go to Analytics. I can build an analyzed topic and put that back into Data Hub, and then it will go to, I can use that in data modeling, which I'll show you right now. So the bidirectional flow of these topics through Litmus Edge and in the Digital Factory demo is really key to understand how we're able to build upon these use cases and start doing a lot more with our data. So I have my device subtopics here. I can then go to analytics, as I mentioned previously. I'll go to an OEE calculation I'm doing here. So now I have all those, we'll call them raw topics from Device Hub, right? I've got things like cycle started, I mentioned, temperature, maybe part made, etc. I can subscribe to these topics and build out new data points doing a three-step process in analytics. So at the left-hand side here, I have my raw topics. And if I actually look at the processors, I can see kind of how this functions, right? So I have my inputs. So that's my base topic I'm working with. I have my functions, which are basically, this is a low-code, no-code approach. So we have pre-built algorithms that will take the data points we're subscribing to and transform them. We can do a number of different types of calculations. We can do change of value, moving average, anomaly detection, linear projection. We have some AI nodes we can use at the edge, uptime, downtime, quality, etc. So we have these pre-built processors. In addition to that, we also have the ability to code at the edge too. So when we say low code, no code, we really try to balance that line to give you things out of the box. But you can also build a JavaScript processor node here, or a Go scripting processor node to work with that data even more and continue to transform the information. So we have inputs, functions, which are doing the lifting and transforming the data. And then the third process is our output processors, which once I've taken that data point, I've contextualized it, transformed it, I can then push it out as its new topic to then use elsewhere in the Litmus Edge platform. So all that being said, let's take a step back and look at this actual flow here. On the left side, as I mentioned, I have, I'll call my raw data topics from Device Hub. If I click the eyeball here, I can see I'm debugging this or subscribing to this topic. So I mentioned the topics before. I put the topic name in my subscription node. I then hit the eyeball and I can see the actual data coming through for this particular topic, which is my tap time. So I get my data type, metadata, which would be all my extra contextualization I've done to this data point. So I can see this particular topic is coming from my UNS area line 2. It's plant 1, machine 1. My maintenance code is 1000. I also have my timestamp and my value to associate with this as well. So as I'm bringing in data right out of the box, all the data is normalized into this JSON payload. All the different device connections you make will have a very similar structure. So again, the data is all normalized, but you also get that contextualization with it as well. So this is still our raw data that we're working with. So I'm sending, for example, I have my part made node here. I've subscribed to this topic. I have a defective unit tag here as well that I've subscribed to. I'm putting that into my compliance and loss function node to get a quality percentage. I'm also doing the same thing with availability to see whenever the machine's not running. I also have my performance being calculated as well with my cycle time and takt time. All three of these different components to calculate OEE are going into this processor here. And if I click the subscribe, the eyeball here, I can actually see I've gone from taking the raw data points, and here I have an output of my calculated values. So I have availability, OEE, performance quality. In addition to that, I can see which machine, which line, which plant this OEE calculation belongs to. Once I have that data point built out, I can then push that out to a new topic or directly to our time series database at the edge, which we'll look at shortly. And I'm now able to work with this data beyond just here, elsewhere in the platform. So one thing I would do is I would take this raw and analyze data, and I can combine data points from various sources and model it together using our digital twins platform. So here in digital twins, this is a two-step process, but essentially what we're doing is we're building a data model to take data points from various points of the platform and combining them into one single place. So as I said, it's a two-step process. The first thing we'll do is we'll deploy a data model, and then we'll deploy an instance of that data model. So one example we can look at, okay, so we have a robot arm here we can take a look at. So when I build my data model, I can attach static and dynamic attributes to this data model. So here I have some static attributes. Manufacturer, it's a FANUC robot arm. It's at plant 1. I can transform this data at the edge, so I can take that data payload and those different topics that I'm going to be using in this data model, and I can do JSON or math or transformations to the data in the data model itself. I can use parameters, which I'm not doing for this model, but I can use parameters to do this at scale. If I have thousands of robot arms I'm trying to build, I can parameterize the topic names to quickly deploy a bunch of different instances of this model. The two important things to take away here from the dynamic attributes and schema. The dynamic attributes, when you build your model, are going to be placeholders for the analyzed values that are going to be coming through on the data model itself. So here I see power, park grab, speed, voltage, etc. is running, temperature. These are the data points I want in my data model. I'm going to identify those and put them into the model here in my dynamic attributes. And once I've done all that, I can then decide how I want the schema of my data model to look. So I can quickly build a nested parent-child type hierarchy relationship using the data model, or digital twins rather, schema. So I built out my data model. I've got the schema the way I want it to look. I'm now ready to deploy an instance of this model. So I have my robot arm instance here. The main difference here is now those placeholder, the dynamic attributes I had set up in the model have now been, topics have been mapped to those. So again, these are those raw topics in Device Hub. or the analyzed topics from analytics. This can be from multiple different data sources. So you can take data from, for example, like an SAP, a PLC, an Excel spreadsheet. You can push these all and join them here into our data model instances. And then if I go to data access and click subscribe, I can see, again, that nested schema for my data. But this is me subscribing to that live information as it comes through on the Digital Factory demo. So everything I'm showing you today, those device connections, those analytics, these data models, you're getting all these out of the box. And this is just to get you to understand how to bring topics into Litmus Edge, work with those topics, model those topics together. But you have the freedom to build atop these data models. If you wanted to do more, if you wanted to explore the art of the possible with what you can do, feel free to try to break this, build new data models, join these data models together, et cetera. But really the key takeaway here is, from step one, data connection, transformation, and modeling, we've gone from taking singular data points, transforming them, and putting them together here to a very complex data payload. And again, everything in Litmus Edge is topic-based. So now I have a topic that I can subscribe to. I can send this data outbound, and I'm going to get all the information in this payload here, built all at the edge with Litmus Edge. So I've subscribed the data, analyzed it, modeled it. Now I can, in my integrations window here, I can choose where I want to send this data to. So if I want to take that whole robot arm payload, send it outbound, from my integrations module, I can see all the different destinations. We have these native integrations built into Litmus Edge. You can see we have a number of different area destinations your data can land: Databricks, Azure, send it to a Kafka broker, MQTT, Oracle, Snowflake, REST API, etc. Anything that you see in the device hub with our data connections or on the egress for integrations, we're always adding to these catalogs. So what you're going to get with Digital Factory Demo, just know that if you have some devices you want to connect to or destinations you want to send your data to, these catalogs are always being updated. If any feedback or things you want to see added, we're always very willing to add those to our catalog, because it makes our product better and it helps you out as well. So as you use Digital Factory Demo, if you have any notes or takeaways about things you'd like to see added to the platform, it's a really good opportunity to identify that as well. So we grabbed our data, we've transformed it, we're integrating it. Last kind of step I want to look at here is how we can extend the functionality of this platform too in Digital Factory Demo. We do this through our application marketplace. So this is a Docker-based marketplace where you can launch a number of different Docker containers. And again, just extend the functionality of the platform. One thing you'll see here is we actually have the Digital Factory Demo itself deployable from our application marketplace. So if you were to, for example, grab the 2-hour developer version of Litmus Edge from our portal, you could take that ISO file, spin up Litmus Edge instance. It would be blank, but upon logging in, you could come to our marketplace, click here on this Digital Factory Demo icon, run that container, and upon deployment, you'll have all the flows and analytics and digital twin models that I've shown you today at your disposal. So again, lots of different things we can do here, many different ways we can extend the functionality of the platform. Feel free to explore, run your own containers. Once you have your DFD running, explore the different things you can do with the application, absolutely. One container that we deploy out of the box with our DFD is our Grafana container. So all the data that we're collecting is going to our Data Hub time series database at the edge. And you can see here, it's going to a number of different measurements in our database. We're able to, actually, this is a point of housekeeping. We're able to take that data, deploy a Grafana container. And if I see here, this is my list of containers that are running on this Digital Factory Demo. One of them I see here is Demo Grafana 1. I can see a port number here that this container has set. What I will do is I'll take the IP address of my Litmus Edge, put a colon, 3000, so the port number. And upon doing that, with DFD, you have the access to this Grafana visualization dashboard as well. So all the calculations that we've done today are viewable as these visualizations that we built. Just like everything else in Litmus Edge that's templatizable, these Grafana dashboards are templatizable as well. So you can build one using the DFD, keep it in your back pocket and deploy it for your enterprise very, very quickly. You can get a visualization built and deploy it to hundreds of sites if you'd like. So earlier we were looking at OEE. This is just me taking those data points that I've calculated on Litmus Edge and viewing them in a more user-friendly way. But we're able to build these Grafana dashboards out very intentionally. We can build them out for different roles. So for example, I had the executive role I was just looking at. Now I can see my plant manager role that I'm building out my DFD for, or my Grafana container for. So I can see downtime, work orders by month. So I'm bringing work order information here as well. Just a number of different types of charts that you can build and view from our using the TS data source and using Grafana. We have a lot of different possibilities. So here we have an SPC. This chart was actually dynamic and moving. It's animated. So as you can see, as data is updating, the chart will continue to move. You could set a threshold around this lower limit here, and set an alert based on hitting this value. Lots of different possibilities of not only how you can view the data, but what you can do with the data once we have it visualized. So end to end, I think the key takeaway is just knowing that once you deploy Litmus Edge, it's going to be a blank slate out of the box, but DFD is designed again just to get you up and running with those device connections, with the pre-built analytics we have, the models we have, our visualizations we have here. And it's an iterative process. It continues to grow and build. And as the years go on, we discover new things from the help of our partners. We introduce new features. And the DFD is a really good place for us to all explore that together. And with that being said, we've recently introduced our Litmus MCP server, which my colleague, who's also running this meeting with me today, Benjamin Norman, has been able to deploy and use to build his own application and kind of like future state art of the possible, look beyond this and really begin to explore new ways to simulate your data for your factory to really be a more intentional, streamlined way to begin working with data in Litmus Edge. So with that being said, Ben, if you wanted to kind of jump into some of that, I think this is a good time to look at some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everybody. Benjamin Norman, partner solution architect here. I'm happy to see just first of all of our partners showing up to today's call. Definitely keep those questions coming into the Q&A, as you're getting them, and we can definitely get them answered. One of the things I wanted to mention too is if you've taken a lot out of today's demo, we'll be hopefully sending the recording out afterwards. You can, study it if you see yourselves doing the DFD demo to, your clients, your customers, and then, building on top of that. Thank you, Dylan, for taking the time today to kind of go through in detail, very, very clean, polished example of running DFD. So keep those questions coming. So before we kind of jump into some of the things that we've been working on, one of the things that as we start to think about how do we help our partners actually show our part of the combined solution, right? So you probably are really familiar with the fact that we're going to be the data foundation, if you would, inside of the OT layer, where we can obviously connect to a lot of OT devices, pull all of that information in, normalize and contextualize it. And if you're a new partner, you may be hearing this for the first time. If you're more of a veteran, you're sort of used to this talk track. But one of the things that became very clear is we really want to make it easier to demo a lot of the apps and things that our partners are going to be doing on top of that data. Right now, with the digital factory demo, as Dylan showed, there were obviously a lot of containers running inside of Litmus Edge. So we've got Litmus Edge here, and then you've got a demo container running here. And these demo containers are sending in data. As soon as you install this, obviously you get everything configured, tags, analytics, all of that, which is super helpful to have that set up. But if you start to notice, some of the data is very, it's very, it looks very simulated. And when you start to think about, well, hey, I'm doing something with ML or analytics on top of data coming from Litmus Edge, this is where demos will start to fall flat because the data's always the same. So one of the things that we're working on improving is this idea of, well, what if we could create a tool that lives out here that would allow us to simulate factory data, but also have that factory data as it's sending in the individual tags. One other thing that happens with simulations is the data is not correlated. So you've got simulated data left and right. It's all doing its own thing, but the data is not really related to each other. So it gets really hard to demo very solid use cases on top of that. And so what I'm about to show you today is going to be two phases. Number one, we've built a sort of art of the possible data simulator, obviously leveraging AI that allows us to create different types of factories. And then inside of those different types, also run different scenarios. So in the example that I'll show, this is something that we built for Prove It, which a lot of our peers and partners are at right now. But the Prove It example, basically was a bottling facility. And the data that was coming into that was even very flat. It was not correlated, definitely, sinusoidal in nature, really hard to show a lot of value in simulated data. But one of the things that we did is leveraging AI, we reverse engineered what the bottling facility was actually doing, taking a look at the data, and then from there, this allowed us to create scenarios. And a scenario would be like, let's say we're gonna model a conveyor bearing failure, right? And what this application over here is going to allow us to do, and then hopefully when we get to the place where we're ready to share this with our partners, is you'll be able to create factory types that are relevant to the client that you're actually trying to sell your stuff to, right? So it allows us to really model what an example factory of that type would look like, generate scenarios, and then what happens is it'll start pushing data into Litmus Edge, um, and you'll be able to again use the data platform to build whatever you want to add on top of that. So that'll be kind of the first thing that I'll show, and then the second thing, just sort of building on top of this. Let's see, my mouse is not plugged in, so that's why it's not working. Okay, so the second thing is once the data is inside a Litmus Edge, what we have is we've got an MCP server. Right now it is open source. You can get this on GitHub, and it's model context protocol server. And what it does is it actually will make API calls into Litmus Edge. And allow you to do all kinds of different things, interfacing with a connected Litmus Edge. And then what we've done is we've built sort of a reference application called, and we're just calling it. This is not a real product. It's not productized. It's really just a demo app, but we're calling it Litmus Edge Insights. And what this is basically it's basically like a a Claude chat or Gemini or, even OpenAI, where, it's a chat interface that's going to allow you to get information from your Litmus Edge in a chat configuration and start to have a conversation with your data. So really sort of like art of the possible kind of thing. So hopefully that paints a good picture. And what I'll do here is I will actually pull up the demo and start to share with you what we've got here. So that's not what I want to do. There we go. All right, so here's the app as it is right now, and I'm in the chat interface. But the first thing is I'm going to actually jump over to the simulator piece. So here we've got Enterprise B, which is a beverage facility, and we've using Claude Code obviously to put this together really quickly. We're a team of sales engineers, and what we've been able to do with AI has been pretty slick and really easy to do, quite honestly. So the first thing is we've got a deep dive, explanation of what this factory is. So it goes into a write-up of the kinds of data it's sending, what the equipment configuration is, how we're monitoring it, and then it's suggesting a couple of breakdown scenarios that we would be able to simulate. Right now, the simulator is pushing data to an MQTT broker, so I have that configuration there. And then you can see a couple of different scenarios. So one of the scenarios that we'll short step into is this conveyor belt bearing scenario, which looks like it was run just a little while ago. And again, we've got a write-up of what that is. But you're starting to see some of the data that we're going to be sending, to Litmus Edge. Here are the topics. We've got process data and some OEE metrics. You can see the color coding there. And then what's really neat is we're actually modeling what the line would look like left to right inside of a factory. And when you're for me, when I think about demoing, how do I show this to somebody who's in the OT space? I want obviously the demos to connect to the human being that I'm showing them to. And rather than just a generic, hey, we can connect and collect all the data, which we do so well, put it into the context of like, hey, we're going to model this actual factory line, right? So really, what you're seeing could turn into the next gen DFD demo. But here you can see we've got these stations inside of our line. We've got a mixing room, storage, filling lines, labeler, palletizer, and you can kind of get a visual in your mind of what the process looks like moving from left to right. And then the degradation here, so as the data is getting simulated, it's going to be, like I said, correlated. So when we run this data, what you're going to notice is we've got about 575 tags that are going to be pushed in once per second, into Litmus Edge, and all of the data in the simulation, leveraging AI, is correlated to each other. So if, in other words, if a conveyor goes down in the filling line, then we should see some indication that the labeler upstream is going to be, downstream rather, is going to be affected by that, and be able to see that inside of the data. And this is early days, so we definitely want all of our partners to give us feedback if we're off the mark here in terms of demo, but hopefully that'll enable all of you in your various capacities to build on top of Litmus Edge using data that looks almost real. So it'll make your demos even more powerful, maybe than what you're showing right now if you don't have access to that sort of data set. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and restart the simulation, and then I'm pushing into a different Litmus Edge over here. And you can see that we're starting to get tags coming in. Again, going back over to hopefully where we're sending this. Should be not enterprise A. Let's see, they probably routed it right here. So you can see 575 tags coming in here, and I could obviously go through all of these, but you can see it's very rich. And then if I look at the logs here, you can see that we've got data being routed in, to this device. So then over here on the chat side, what this will allow us to do, the simulator is going to run on a 2-minute cycle. That's basically how it's been, programmed right now. And after the 2 minutes, it'll basically stop, and then we can start to do some analysis on the data. So, while that's finishing up, just to kind of give you a sense of like, okay, well, what is this thing, underneath the hood, Litmus Edge Insights? So what we've got is we're hosting our front end. Man, I'm a terrible box drawer today. Let's try this again. So we're hosting the front end in Vercel, on the back end, using Railway, and then I'm using Supabase for the dashboard. For the database, just sort of as a heads up. So Railway is going to be our back end, and it's making API calls to the MCP server, which is open source, and the MCP server is making API calls using both the SDK and some REST API for some of the things that weren't available in the SDK to pull data out of Litmus Edge. One of the things that we're actually showing at Prove It, which is pretty cool, is we're actually running a network sniffing operation, which is allowing us to figure out what is actually connected to Litmus Edge, or what's trying to connect, and what may not be configured correctly. So I would say definitely keep an eye on the feeds. I'm sure once our video is done from Prove It, you'll actually be able to see that demoed by our peers, who I think wrapped up just a little over an hour ago. So what's happening? What's going to happen next is we're going to, the chat interface lives here. So I'm going to jump back over to that, and it should be done by now. Let's just see. Yep. So we're all wrapped up. So looks like 11:40 to 11:42, and hopefully this will this will work well. But one of the things that we'll do is let me just double check my device. So device name is back over here. Enterprise B Site 4 broker. So one of the things that I'm going to do is get me the historical data from Enterprise B for the last 24 hours. And just like you'd sort of expect, in a modern day LLM chat, you can see it's making a call to the MCP server. And if this goes well and everything works the way it should, it'll pull information back, which it did. So we've got a wall of text here. This is just showing you really the response that came back. But you can see that we've pulled, in 1,000 different data points. The LLM is starting to break down, what actually is going on. So you can see the different stations here, and then from here, really, we can start to dive into the data. It limited it to 1,000 data points because I didn't specify. So that's not going to really help us because we'd want to get the full data set. So what I'm going to actually do is, so basically what that means is if we have 575 tags once a second and they're limited to 1,000, we're basically looking at, 2 data values per tag, which isn't going to be rich enough for us to really do anything with the AI. So I'm going to actually do the same thing again, but I'm going to ask it to not put the cap on it this time. And note to myself to go back and obviously update and make this call collapsible, which it is right there. So there we go. So I'm just going to copy and paste this in. Do not limit the data points. And we'll see, well, it'll have to also interpret my spelling mistake too. Let's see if the call goes in. This time we have 50,000 data points, which will be a lot better. I'm just going to collapse this so we don't see a wall of text. And what's happening right now is it's pulling that, it's going to pull those data points back in, and it's pulling it all into the Supabase database underneath. Basically is serving as our cache, and then the LLM is going to interface with that database instead of Litmus Edge to start to understand what's going on. You can see we pulled out 50,000 data points, which is great. And so one of the things that we're simulating is a conveyor breakdown. So I can start to ask it questions in terms of like what's happening inside of the data. And you know, it's an LLM, so your mileage may vary, but you know, I can be very specific. Anything happening with our filling line 1 that is concerning. And I've never actually typed this prompt in, so we'll see what it comes back with. So it's going to go and get tag status on some of this, and it may go through a couple of different things. So in this case, the interpretation is it couldn't find the tag, so that's fine. But with more time, we'd step through a couple of different prompts, which would enable us to actually get to the AI starting to tell us like what's actually going on with the data inside this factory, so that we can see some information. And I think we've got some examples of that in some of these previous chats. We're running back through different disconnections. Let's see, this was an early example. So without going through all the prompts and burning the time up, you can see that, for this, we're running the same simulator, and that simulator is picking up 11 critical issues. It's starting to suggest, hey, this is what I'm noticing. You can see that across the different stations, there's severe drops. And then, sort of from being a little bit more prescriptive, it's informing the user, hey, you need to take a look at this. We thought that was a pretty neat art of the possible kind of thing to showcase. So that all being said, I think that kind of wraps what we wanted to show in terms of DFD demo and some of the things we got coming down the pike. I think from here we can probably take it over to see some of the questions that we got in the chats, and maybe for that, I'll bring you back in, Will.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Benjamin, and Dylan as well. Yeah, we got a few questions in the chat. The first one is around going back to the digital factory demo, and for things like local connections that people download the DFD, then set up local connections. What do you do about future updates? So if you update or download updates around the DFD, do you automatically get those connections back, or how does that dynamic work?
Yep, got it. So Dylan, I think you could probably speak to that. Updates to the digital factory demo. I don't believe it's automatically deployed to all those people running DFD, but you can certainly fill in the gaps there.
No, yeah, I do reply to that if it's the same one I'm thinking of. The most seamless way to do it would be to pull the new DFD image from the application marketplace on your Litmus Edge. And if there is ever a major update made to DFD, that would be socialized to our clients and partners. So you would be aware that it may be time to pull the new DFD image. In addition to that, the accelerators page, the template you download from there would also be updated, but it would not be something where you like log on and see changes made to your local LE. You would have to go about updating that by either pulling the new image or grabbing the new template. But again, if there's anything of note that we think would be of value for our clients or partners to experience with an update, that would be socialized. And I suspect there will be a big update coming, or a notable update coming sometime shortly, as we kind of talk about some of this art of the possible stuff that you mentioned, Ben, there may be a bit of a genesis to the way that DFD is structured, but this concept's the same. It's designed to give you a set of pre-built connections, tools to understand how the function of Litmus Edge works, and just if you wanted to build on top of that or do some exploring on your own, it's just a good launch pad to understand, what you're able to do.
All right, super. On the next question is around dashboards and about integrating the dashboards that we're seeing here today in Grafana. How could you integrate those into a Power BI dashboard, for instance? Or my guess is you could extend that to any dashboard like Tableau, et cetera. So maybe talk a bit about that framework.
Yeah, sure. So anything I showed in Grafana today, you couldn't take that Grafana viz and necessarily import it natively to another application, but all the data and cloud plumbing that we've done could just be replicated. So the data layer is very repeatable, right? We could do the same calculations and grab the same information to feed. We're designed out of the box to integrate into Power BI. So the same calculations that are happening on the back end to power those visualizations in Grafana would be set up to run on Power BI as well, or like a Tableau, as you said, Will. So the foundational layer is taken care of, but it's not like a pick and replace kind of a thing from Grafana directly into Power BI out of the box.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it gives you the flexibility to move across different visualization layers for different applications and different users. So use the same foundational data, but optimize it for the application and the user where it's going. There were a couple of questions that were support related in the chat window. A bit hard to troubleshoot within this session, but what I recommend partners do, if you have questions, you can send it, or have a support issue, you can send an email to support@litmus.io, and that will enable us to log that, track it, close it out, and ensure we get a good answer for you to resolve any specific issues that you have. One other programming note is that the team put together a really nice, what we call a demo run book. So what Dylan and Benjamin went through today, they put together a couple of page guide for walking through the demo for different types of personas. So if you're speaking more to an operator or engineer, maybe someone in maintenance or on the business side, it enables you to customize the demo and walk you through certain sections and recommend specific talking points. So really helping you fine tune the demo and tell the story that you want to tell. A link will be going out tomorrow that will include a link to the recording of these partner office hours, as well as how to get access to that demo runbook. So encourage you to take a look at that when it comes out tomorrow. And again, please use the support channel and support email in order to log any tickets that you have. Now, I do have another question around the digital factory demo, specifically around how the devices are connected and how are they getting data. I'm not sure if that's relation to the virtual assets that are already within the demo, or net new assets that the person might want to connect on their side. But I don't know, Dylan or Benjamin, if that gives you enough context to take that question.
Sorry, could you just repeat that for me one time, Will? Specifically the question?
Yeah, it was about connecting the digital factory demo to new assets and how the data streams in. So I don't know if it was related to the DFT that's already set up, or incremental assets that are added.
So if you're adding new assets and you have access to the connections on your local network, you could take an instance of Litmus Edge with DFT deployed onto it, and you could bring in your own actual device connections, no problem. It's not like they can run in parallel. So you could bring in other connections. And beyond that, I see a question here about setting up connectivity with other platforms on the egress, like Snowflake or Databricks. You could absolutely set up your own streaming connectors for integrations as well. So you can build on top and run in parallel. You don't have to do everything in the confines of like the demo devices we've set up for you or the integrations we've set up for you. You can take this data and connect to new data sources or push the simulated data without connecting to new data sources to other destinations, so long as you configure the integration correctly, like with your service account and your remote topic where you want the data to land, which table in the cloud it needs to go to, et cetera. So yeah.
Okay,
And I
super.
think I would just kind of add on top of that too. So for the DFD demo, specifically to answer the question, how are the devices connected? When you see it in the replay where Dylan showed containers, the DFD demo will install containers, a handful of them, and each one of them is simulating a different device. You know, the Siemens device, things like that. Where it's acting like a Siemens device and sending that information into Litmus Edge. So hopefully that answers that question.
All right, super. Yeah, thanks, Benjamin, Dylan. Another question here related to specifically the Oracle Cloud. And the note is that they're connecting DFD to Oracle Cloud. Can you advise on how they can integrate Oracle master data into Litmus Edge and sync it to the device? Is that enough context to tackle that one, or I can make a note, we can follow up on email?
We may want to, we have a couple of Oracle solutions built in. So if you go to the accelerators page that I shared earlier, we have a couple of integrations for Oracle Fusion and Oracle DB. For that question, I think it would be better just to have like a write-up offline so we can cover the technical prereqs sufficiently, I guess. So yeah, we'll follow up with that question.
Okay, yeah. Please leverage that support at litmus.io, and we can follow up on that one. So, good question. I think we have time for one more here. It's a question around deploying DFD in a centralized virtual environment on, say, Azure or Oracle Cloud, and then deploying to local machines. So, any guidance on being able to do something like that?
So you can set up a centralized VM of Litmus Edge and run digital DFD from there. And the question was using that as an orchestration platform to then push to other LEs. You would do that through the orchestration processes would to basically push data to LEs would be done from a Litmus Edge manager. What I would just run the containers locally for the non-centralized VMs. That's how I would kind of deploy Litmus Edge. If you have more questions surrounding that question, if I'm not understanding that properly, again, please follow up and we'll make sure we get you the right answer. But you could have DFD running on a VM in the cloud. Yes.
Okay. And I noticed there's a couple of questions around connectors. And again, if you'd like to take a look at some of our online documentation for specific connectors, recommend going to docs.litmus.io. And that has a lot of information around connectivity and deployment options and good troubleshooting as well. I know there are a couple of additional questions, but we're right at the end of the session. So I'll make a note of these and we'll be sure to follow up. And then for those that have other questions that did not make it into the Q&A, please send those to support@litmus.io and we'll make sure to follow up on those. But I want to wrap up today by saying thanks very much to Dylan and Benjamin for the digital factory demo and painting some of the art of the possible around AI and the potential that we have in working with operations data in a very natural way. So appreciate the time today for everyone that joined and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.